Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of Harvey County Talk. As always, I'm your host, Lance Gormley. Our guest on the program today is Kendra Davila, who is the Director of Peace Connections here in Newton. How are you doing today, Kendra?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you. I first approached you a couple weeks ago and just wanted to have you come out on the program. I don't know a lot about Peace Connections, so if I ask any ignorant questions, I apologize in advance. But I know that you guys serve a needed role in the community. I've been to commission meetings and whatnot, and know that you are all active and know that you're there to support some of the people that are the most in need. And I just thought, well, I can't let this opportunity get away. I got to talk to Kendra, get her out here on the program, have her not only explain to me what you guys do, but then the broader community. So I really appreciate you coming on the program.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And you know this, it takes a village.
Yes, so. It does. Absolutely. One thing I always do, if you haven't seen any of the programs before, is at the beginning of all these Harvey County Talks, what we do is just try to get a little bit more information about you, maybe where you grew up, where you went to school, did you do sports, did you do extracurricular activities, just so we can find out, well, who is Kendra and what is Kendra about? So were you a lifelong Newtonian, or where do you hail from?
Yeah, so I grew up in Heston, and I loved growing up there. And I have a twin sister and two brothers, and older than me. And we grew up in the time I was a baby when the Heston tornado happened. And I know that's something that you recently talked about here. And what that meant for me is I grew up with stories of people coming together with their neighbors, helping after a tragedy, bringing meals to each other, and just being there for support. And so growing up, I mean, I knew about the trauma of the tornado, but my whole life had this backdrop of support and people coming together. And so I just always assumed that about the world. And I think that's maybe what led me to a social work career.
Very cool. So you're a swather. Okay. So you went all K through 12 in Heston. What kind of things, were you a sports person? Did you play sports, or were you into, what kind of extracurricular activities were you interested in doing?
Oh man, I'd heard of sports, but that was not part of my experience. I had a lot of really great friends, and we hang out, did some theater and things like that.
Very cool. So you did theater?
Some.
Okay, very cool. Yeah. Did you have church activities, extracurricular? Is that, I mean, surely you just didn't do school and then it was sit in your room and stare at the wall the whole time.
Yeah, a lot of time with friends and doing things like that.
Very cool.
I was part of the Future Business Leaders of America for my school, and Scholars Bowl and that kind of fun nerd things.
Yeah, no, that's you're after my own heart. Yeah. I'm always interested in the academic side or the extracurricular academic side of K through 12 school. You know, so you said something about the Heston tornado and that we had recently talked about on the program, and I moved to Heston shortly, like within 2 years after the tornado, and I concur. What you said is absolutely accurate. I mean, that left a lasting impression on so many people's lives there. It was a huge ordeal. And, I was not old enough, nor was I there right after that event, to be able to see and understand it the way that you might have. But I will say I'm at 100% agreement with you that the community of Heston comes together, especially after tragedies, and really just gives to one another. It's a very giving community. I mean, send a shout out to people in Heston. You guys are a giving community. But did you go to college?
Yeah, so I went to Heston College and then Bethel, and I did a couple of different things in there. Originally, my major was Spanish, and I wanted to study that, but ultimately chose social work just because I love people and hearing stories and ways that we can, help each other kind of figure out the human experience.
Very cool. So you're a LARC first, and then for those that don't know, that's a 2-year program. I think they just turned into a 4-year here recently over the last year. Yeah, parts of it. But then you became a thresher. Was there any reason why you decided that you wanted to be a thresher and not a shocker or a jayhawker or a wildcat?
Oh, that's a tough question. So I did some classes with HCTalk. I actually did a semester through Goshen College for a study abroad program. And then for my last semester of college, I actually transferred out to a program in Washington, D.C. to keep studying the impacts of policy work in the social work realm. And so kind of all around. And then I actually ended up at KU to get my master's.
Okay, so you just keep opening it up. Okay, so I'm interested. You come from a small community, right? Like Heston, it's a small community. Even Newton, and it's a larger community, but North Newton especially, and it's a small private college. Yeah. So when you went from, Newton, Kansas, America, to Washington, D.C., tell me a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so initially when I was 18, I knew that, my experience living in small town Kansas wasn't a real picture of the world. It was for my little corner of it, but not for everybody. I'd never had an experience being in a minority population or just different experiences. So I moved to Baltimore, Maryland. Wow. And that's a community that's 95% African American. And I loved it so much. I mean, it really formed my understanding of the world, and saying my experience one day might be different the next, and very different from the person who's next to me on the bus. And so I loved that, and that really formed kind of my life trajectory. And I ended up studying initially with social work, planning like immigration law and refugee resettlement. Okay. So that was a big part of what I studied and where I worked for a long time. Big part of my job was helping people navigate new communities, figuring out like how to find resources, like how to get kids enrolled in school, where's the best place to get a haircut, all those kind of just normal human activities
that we all take for granted. And it's interesting that you had mentioned that the demographics are so much different in Baltimore than from here, and there is a cultural difference. I mean, we all have our cultural differences, and that's based upon geographical location, not always necessarily race, but that is included in it. Right. And so then when you go put yourself in that situation, it's funny that you gravitated, not funny, but interesting that you gravitated towards this understanding that, well, you were kind of in that situation too. I mean, for all intents and purposes, you went someplace and it was completely foreign to you, probably a different land altogether, a different culture, a different perspective, not knowing where to go, what to do. And so then you, in your own way, experienced the same thing that you were, on a micro level that you're trying to help others experience. So you said you're a Jayhawker. Okay. Oh, but I want to go back to that. What was, I love asking the two-part questions, two different ways to look at it. So I'm going to assume that was a pivotal time in your life, in your development. So what was one of the most challenging things that you experienced when being, transported from, transplanted, we'll call it, from here to there?
Oh, man. Just meeting new people with different worldviews, different politics, different, way of doing religion, of work, just different. And maybe because it was near the coast, maybe because it was closer to DC, different things there. What was pivotal? Maybe part of that Midwest nice thing. I've always experienced people in Kansas being nice to their neighbor, whether or not they know them, making a lot of assumptions then that, people, you don't know what kind of day they're having, so you're there. People in Baltimore didn't really talk to the people on the street as they passed them. I was very weird for, saying hi to people on the bus, things like that. I don't know if I have a good answer for that, but just
that's
experience.
Interesting. I mean, that's a definite challenge. Yeah. And I could only imagine. I mean, I've had similar situations, but not like that. Yeah. You said something about people in the Midwest being awful friendly. I know that when I've went other places that the norm of being friendly is not their norm. So I'm getting a picture painted of there was some challenges for you based upon the fact that, man, the culture shock is incredible. And when you try to go operate like you normally do or what's normal in this environment, that it's not normal in that environment. So, okay, and the flip side of that, what was something that you would take away as one of the most rewarding things during that time?
Oh, man, it's always the people. So just getting to know that there's different experiences about the world, and it makes a really rich life.
Very cool. Okay, so you said you're a Jayhawker. So walk me from this, I'm guessing, downtown Baltimore scenario to, I'm assuming deciding you're going to continue your education. So that brought you back. And then did you move to Lawrence, or was it an online program? Or
I moved to Kansas City, and I got to work with the housing authority there. And a big part of my role was working with a lot of the Somali population in with the housing authority. And again, different cultures, different life experiences, and just ways of relating to people. And
yeah, that's challenging. We hear a lot about immigration, obviously, but this idea that when people do come here who are refugees, they are in a state of culture shock, and to be able to find housing and employment and all of these things is a huge challenge. Their opportunities are much more than where they came from, right? And then was your responsibility just housing, or did it help with other transitional situations with them?
Yeah, other transitional situations as well. If it was a lot of employment services, a lot of then like school relations, like for truancy type work, kind of all across the board.
Very cool, very cool. So then you're in Kansas City, which is still a big difference. It's a minor culture shock, not in Baltimore, but it probably seemed like you were a little bit closer to home. Maybe some of the friendliness is there that's not in the northeast. So you're doing that. What made you want to continue on to higher education at KU, and what did you choose to major in?
Oh man, getting my master's in social work was really something I wanted to do once I decided I wanted to do social work. And KU has a phenomenal program, kind of a macro lens. A lot of students end up doing like one-on-one clinical or therapy work, but I had a bigger picture than that I wanted to work on.
Very cool. So, do you claim being a Jayhawker, or are you a Thresher, or are you a little both? I mean, what do you say? Are you proud to be a Jayhawker?
Oh, I'll claim them all. Sure, it's nice to be included, right?
I love it. Okay, so you knew your direction, your path, and was there a big time gap that took place between you getting your bachelor's degree and getting your master's, or did you just kind of go right into that?
Not a big time gap.
Not a big time gap. So you're still young at that point in time, and
still am.
Well, yeah. I guess I say because I'm old and I got my education when I was older, but I say younger. In your early 20s, you still got your whole world ahead of you. Life is at your fingertips, and you're going in that direction. So specifically, when you were going to KU, did it allow you to focus in on what you were wanting to do, or did you find that you left that education still desirous of focusing on was it a broad degree, or was it specific to something?
Yeah, so it was specific to kind of the macro policy lens under the social work realm, and I knew that before I started. So that's how I ended up at KU specifically, because their program is phenomenal. And after graduation, I stayed there a little bit, but then I had a friend who worked in refugee resettlement in Wichita. So that's how I ended up back in this area. And I got to do some of those same things of helping people navigate different resources and just get to, better understand the community around them.
So, then you came to a job right after you went to KU, and then just filtered into a place in Wichita, you said? Do you want to give a shout out to anybody in Wichita that gave you your opportunity to?
Yeah, well, it was Marla Schmidt, who was a Heston resident, who worked with, at the time, the Episcopal Wichita Area Refugee Ministry, which became the Episcopal Migration Ministries, which folded into the St. Francis Migration Ministries. And it's had a rocky road in the last couple of years.
Yeah. And when we're talking about immigration into Wichita and Kansas, you had mentioned a Somali population in Baltimore, correct? So where did that focus here in Wichita? What was the general demographic of people that you were helping achieve transition from their home country to here?
Oh, man. I probably worked with people from 30 different countries, so I can't say specifically, but I have a lot of really great friends now who came from Western Africa and from the Congo.
Very cool.
So I'll shout them out all day.
Very cool. Yeah. Okay. So you're there in Wichita. You're working in that that field. You're living in Newton maybe at that point in time. how did you kind of give me your path from that point in time until where you found yourself at Peace Connections?
Yeah, so like I said, it was kind of a rocky road for the office that I worked for, and it ended up closing ultimately. And so I needed to find new work. And honestly, the work of Peace Connections, it's helping people navigate a community and different resources. And it's the same work. There's just often less of a language barrier.
Okay, yeah, because ultimately, if you're in the job of helping people find those resources, it doesn't matter to you whether they're from some other country or whether they're from, your own community. It's kind of in the same line, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so just did you just a position come open? I mean, you're the director, right? So was it something that you just applied for straight out, or was it something that you got a job there and then the director position came open, or kind of walk me through that?
Yeah, moved around a couple different positions, and my now 5 years there, which feels like a lifetime, which is good. Started as a community liaison. So a lot of it was just working with people and helping figure out where there might be gaps in services. And then really people have the motivation and they know what they need. Sometimes they just need a little bit of hand holding or encouragement. Maybe it's a push, but most of the time it's just a friendly face saying you can do hard things.
Yeah. Well, it's more of a hand up, right? I know from what I know about Peace Connection, as I mentioned earlier, was that I generally know what you all do, and I do view it in that way. I view it as an organization that is actively looking for ways to give people a hand up. We hear this old hand up, hand out thing, and I view Peace Connection as a hand up for certain. So you got on the floor there. You moved through the positions until you became the director. What was some things surrounding you becoming the director? Was there somebody just retired, or was it somebody who moved somewhere else? Or just kind of help me understand how you went from, ground floor to then becoming the director.
Yeah, so someone who was in that spot before moved to another role. I think the beauty of this work, it's a very small staff. When I started, I was one of 2 full-time staff, and now we have 3 full-time staff and some part-time. But so much of our work, it's led by volunteers and community members who are passionate about different things. And that's really how our program got started 40 years ago. Just people saying that they cared about their community and wanted to do something about it to make it better for themselves and their kids. I moved around a couple different positions there. Really what fit best with my skill set.
Yeah.
And always trying to find best ways with volunteers or other staff, find what they're really good at and put them in those roles, right? And they'll thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so moving on to Peace Connections, you're the director, so you know everything about Peace Connections. I'm sure I'm going to grill you now. What's the mission statement for those that don't know what Peace Connections is about? All nonprofits have a mission statement of some kind that just gives a broad perspective of what they're trying to accomplish. So help me understand, or the audience understand, what's the mission statement for, or kind of what does Peace Connections try to do?
Inspire transformation in people and systems by building relationships, resources, and resilience. Awesome. And so the way I kind of talk about that mission statement is kind of like a ladder, and having the rungs closer to each other, that makes it easier to get that step up or that hand up. And so, a lot of how we talk about even employment and finding a job, it's not necessarily what you know, but who you know, right? You've heard that phrase 1,000 times. Yep. And so if you have a friend who tells you about a job opening, it makes that rung closer. If you have a friend who maybe can help you practice interview questions or lend you a nice suit jacket or whatever, it makes all of those rungs a lot closer and then easier to climb up. And so we're all about those relationships in our programs.
Yeah, there's an element, I don't know why the word popped into my head, but as you were talking about moving those rungs closer and helping achieve an individual get from point A to point B to C and so forth, I don't know why, but the word hopelessness came up in my mind, and it's almost like not only are you helping empower people to achieve these goals, but you're removing a big barrier, which in a lot of people that don't know how to accomplish that is hopelessness. I don't know how to accomplish this, so then I can't, or this. So is there an element when you use the word friendship, which I find interesting that you would use that word, but I mean, that's very personal.
Right. Absolutely. I think everything in our community is personal there. We talk a lot about our programs, and this with any kind of like New Year's resolution. If you want to go walking every morning, you need someone who will help hold you accountable. So having someone who's going to check in with you on your goal, someone who's going to cheerlead you on your hard days, say you can do those hard things and that you can keep going. So that really builds accountability into a program. It creates high self-esteem, which is a real issue for a lot of the families that we work with struggling with limited resources. It also just builds a better future story when someone's saying that you can do the hard things.
Yeah. Do you find that I'm always somebody who professes that the need is great and the hands are few. Right. So if there's not an avenue for people that want to volunteer to help people, like you had mentioned, if there's not an entity that is designed to help people in this way, then they're just not going to get it, are they?
Right. That's why I might say that our work is twofold. So initially, I would say it is helping families living in poverty or living with limited resources to move up. And we do that, through financial management classes and all of our kind of structured programs. So helping families move here to here. But the other, part of our program, it's helping people who have resources understand those barriers to getting out of poverty so they can walk alongside together. And that's really what breaks down some of our systemic barriers for families. It's really kind of this more global work, and just understanding the policies and systems that keep people struggling.
Yeah. Well, I know something that I've heard people have attended, and I'm not going to attribute it to what you all do, but just to lead into the next question here. I've heard a lot of people talk about a poverty simulation. I don't know how long that's been around, maybe a couple, 3 years or something. Yeah. Maybe we're just on year 2 or 3. Time slips away from me. But it's very interesting how many people don't understand the barriers to progression when it comes to poverty, right. Or being of the lower socioeconomic condition in a family maybe that's generational. There's a lot to that. So what kind of programs does Peace Connections have that you all offer the community?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we offer poverty simulations if any group wants that. So I'll always shout that out. Please ask. There's information on the Peace Connections website that you can find. So our biggest program and what we're most well known for is Circle of Hope. So we meet weekly on Tuesday evenings at First United Methodist Church, and we offer a free dinner and free childcare for anyone who comes. And that's often what gets families get their foot in the door, right? But we encourage people to come for the dinner, but stay for the program. And what that program is, for some people, it starts with like a 15-week financial management class. Others, you can just drop in and say, hey, this is a topic that interests me. And we have local providers share about their resources, whether it's someone talking about mental health, if it's a local banker talking about, services their bank offers. It's a wide range. So that's kind of where it is.
So as part of your guys' organization, Circle of Hope, is that what I'm hearing? So you have the mother company, for lack of a better word, or the mothership is Peace Connections, and then Circle of Hope is a child of that.
Yeah, it falls under that umbrella. Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah, you got it.
Should say it that way. My bad. But not to mince words or anything. So, so there's an opportunity, and I just want to rest here so that way I understand this. Once a week, there's an opportunity for people to go to Circles of Hope, which is, and where's that? you said it was where it was located,
Yeah.
but where's it located at?
First United Methodist Church.
Okay.
It's right across the street from the courthouse.
Okay, so once a week they can go in there. Childcare is provided, a meal's provided, and then there's just people there to love on them and help them achieve a better self.
Yeah, absolutely. So the program that we teach, it's by AHA process. What we teach for our class, for our families who enroll, is called Getting Ahead in a Just Getting By World. And that is curriculum that is geared towards families with limited resources. But we also teach that same program called Bridges Out of Poverty for families or for individuals who have resources to better understand. So it's actually the same curriculum that we're teaching, just in different socioeconomic groups.
So about how many people utilize that on a week to week? I mean, surely you track the numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, is it a well-used program that people see as a lifeline, that show up and are like, I just heard about this, or maybe somebody led them on this, or a friend brought them and said, hey, I'm able to help improve my life in a various way by being. So is there a good attendance there?
Yeah, certainly. So we limit our class size to 10 because when you're talking about your finances and how you manage your money, that's a pretty personal thing, and you don't want to share all of that with the world. So we have 10 in our class, and that is happening at the same time as some of our other programs on Tuesday evenings. But we'll, I think, serve on average about 70 people every week who are there with us.
Wow, that's an amazing group. Just to get 70 people, there must be something there that people see of a value, right? You mentioned financial management classes. What other kind of, I mean, is there like cooking skills? I mean, what are some of the other things that a person who shows up there, if they're listening to this right now and they think, man, I really don't need financial, help or whatever. I mean, I just don't have money to budget. Like how do we, is there something that else that's offered so people can know, like nutritional classes, or kind of what are some other things?
Yeah, absolutely. So when people graduate from the Getting Ahead class, they have the option to enter a match circle, which for us is an 18-month commitment, or for them is an 18-month commitment. And the participant is partnered with 2 to 3 community volunteers. We call them allies or intentional friends who walk alongside them as they work towards some of those goals that they've set in the class. And those goals range from person to person. When we talk about poverty, we often think financial poverty, right? Lack of money. But it's also emotional poverty. Maybe they don't have the mental resources or the physical resources. So we kind of talk about 11 different resources in the class. And then that's what we talk about on Tuesday evenings with that wider group. Each class, each person is a little bit different. Our last class that we had graduate, 8 of the 10 had a long-term goal of home ownership. So we did a lot more focusing in with Habitat for Humanity. They came and gave a presentation about basic home maintenance. We had Brian Donley, a local banker, come talk about opening a bank account and what that looks like to get a mortgage. Some classes, there's a lot more focus on nutrition and people wanting to lose weight or be healthier. And so we kind of gear the programs towards what people want to learn.
Interesting. I gotta say this. I not to give too much of my own life experience, but I can remember a pivotal time in my life as a parent where I took something for granted, but then realized a very profound understanding of something. And I'll give an example. I had given my child the task because they were looking for some way to make some, allowance. I said, well, you can sweep this area. Okay. So upon observing the sweeping of the area, I just shook my head and I thought, well, that is not the right way to do that at all. And then a bulb went off in my head, a little light, and it said, well, if they've never been shown how to do it, then how are they supposed to know how to do it? And it dawned on me that, well, unless I teach this person how to do that, teach my child or whoever that is, change your own oil, whether it's to sweep a floor, whether it's to mop a floor, there's not always the exact right way to do it the way I say to do it, but there's certain concepts that we can say, you need this to be able to accomplish this, or at least achieve to accomplish this. So does it really just come down to that? I mean, there's an element of, dependent upon family dynamics or opportunities that people are given, then they just don't know. I mean, this is not something that people are just taught.
Right.
Not if you're, I mean, if the family has poor or uneducated ways of, and I don't mean to sound crass or anything, but if they were not taught, then they can't teach their kids.
Right.
Then their kids can't teach their kids. So where do you fix that?
Yeah, that's a great question and a good example, and I'll share a little bit about that. But that's, I think, actually the magic of our program, because we're bringing together people from very different socioeconomic places. They're coming from different worlds. They're coming together to better understand each other, and that's where change can happen, because that's where you learn those different skills. And so I'd say one kind of aha moment that I had, we work pretty closely with the health department and their tobacco cessation programs. And I heard Alini there talk about the smoking rate in Harvey County. And it really caught me off guard, mainly because I'd never thought about it. I had no clue what it was. But hearing the number and seeing like something concrete really threw me. And so I was really spinning in my head about it. And the day after I heard that number, I was leading a class at Bethel College, and I asked the students there what they thought the smoking rate was, because I was fascinated. Like, I couldn't get it out of my head. And I asked the students what they thought the smoking rate was, and the first student said, I don't know, 80, 90%, purely guessing. And his guess told me a lot about his worldview, maybe about his family of origin, where he came from, the people he spent time with, all of that. And I really appreciated his answer. And then the student sitting directly next to him said, "People still smoke? I don't know anyone." And they were sitting together in the same classroom. And I loved that they had such different experiences of the world. And the same is true with how we manage our finances, right? A lot of us, we spend the money the way that we've seen others do it, or it's influenced by our peers and say, you want to go check out this new place in town, there's a new restaurant, whatever, right? And so figuring out how to live life together.
Yeah, that's worldview is an amazing thing, and I think you had mentioned something, about worldview, and I want to pass it over to that, and mentioning the volunteers that you have. When you have people that want to volunteer, hopefully there's somebody listening that says, man, I realize this is an avenue in which I can help somebody, whatever, however that might be. Is it eye-opening to the volunteers who have had the privilege of being born into a family or a situation where there's fiscal conservatism, or that they budget properly, or however that might be, even down to literacy or cooking meals or healthy meals or how to eat healthy or all these things. Is it eye-opening to these volunteers that have not experienced that, kind of like the 90, the 10 that you were talking about, is where they're just, their eyes are open to say, hey, there are a lot of people here that need help. And I never, in my day-to-day life, realized the challenges or the ceilings that are here for many people.
Yeah, I would say our volunteers, we have a long history with volunteers. Like, we have really high retention rates, and I think that means that they enjoy it because they keep learning new things. They're building strong relationships. And there's a story that one of our volunteers will share pretty readily, that she was talking about going to a play at Bethel. It's something that she did every fall and every spring. And her circle leader, our program participant, asked her what a play was, because she wasn't familiar. And so they were able to go together to that play. And afterwards, that's all that participant talked about, because she was so excited to see this new thing. And she thought it was only a made-up thing on TV or in movies.
Yeah, because they just never had that chance.
Right.
Interesting. So when moving forward here, I guess my question is, right now I want to stop and I want to ask those two questions again before I ask more questions about other programs that you offer and whatnot. Is what's one of the most challenging things that you see when trying to endeavor to do what you're trying to do and serve people in the community?
Oh man, for me personally, I'm really good at offering unsolicited advice. So really being there, just being with someone and listening to them, because everyone we work with, they're they're brilliant, right? They're an expert at their own life. They know what they need to do. Really, just sometimes that motivation isn't there because they've hit too many walls, right? And so if it's just an extra person to be there for them, just to be a friend, because life is easier when you have someone you can call and say, hey, walk me through this before I say something stupid or I send this bad email, or someone who can just say, oh, it's okay, you've got this, right? And so that's a big part of it.
And then on the flip side, then, what is something that has stuck out to you as very rewarding?
Oh, all of it. I mean, everyone is so wonderful. One of my favorite things that I've implemented in my time with Circle of Hope is once a month, on the last Tuesday of the month, we do a Teach Your Talent night. And we have one of our program participants lead the program. And they just share about something that they know about, that they're an expert in. And it's a wide range of things that we've had. If it's talking about how to cook on a budget, talking about, extreme couponing, whatever they are interested in. And it's a great way to build relationships with the group, to get to know one another better, but also recognize all of the knowledge in that room and all the skills that are there.
And then all the people that want to serve.
Yeah.
That's because they're not getting paid to do it.
Right.
They're just coming in and participating in a way in which says, I'm not going to have anything to gain out of this except to watch people grow, help people grow.
Right. Absolutely.
So,
because relationships are two-way streets.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. What are some other programs that Peace Connections offers? Just, I'm at this point, from what I understand, if there's an individual that feels like they want some help or have a need, if I was to say, man, I really would like to learn how to eat healthier. I'm a chicken nuggets and pizza rolls kind of guy, or whatever the case may be. I can just come in there and say, this is, what I'm looking for help with. And you all just say, okay, well, here, we can help you.
Yes, that's the goal, right? To always be an open door for someone, make sure that they can find the next right door for them. Yeah, I love it. We meet so many people, and there's so many wonderful things going on in our community. And really, Circle of Hope is a celebration of all of the other wonderful things happening in our community. And we can say, hey, there's this resource. Go utilize it. Our partners down at Health Ministries are doing wicked cool things, right?
Yeah.
So we get to say that all day.
Yeah. So, okay. So what are some of the other programs that are offered through Peace Connections?
Yeah, so our longest running program is our Summer Enrichment Activities for Kids, SEEK. And we offer a free lunch and activity during the summer months when the schools aren't able to. And this last summer, we served over 2,500 meals to kids at 2 locations, ages 1 to 18. And all families have to do is show up. We don't ask any other questions. There's no barriers. They're just there to hang out at the park and enjoy a meal with us.
That goes back to mental health. That's what came to mind with me is, if you're not providing an environment for people to plug in, especially during those times of years in which people are not socializing as much, they're not going to school, and other parents and friends and all of that. I hate to say in today's culture, we have grown farther apart. And is that something that aims to try to bring about community, or what's the mission behind that?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. So we serve lunch 4 days a week, and during those activities that we have paired with the meal, we invite a community partner or a church or, youth group, if it's, Defy, or if it's the library, talking about things they're already doing in the community, celebrating that, and just sharing about their mission. And so the kids and families who come to our program, they get to learn about all the really wonderful things happening in Newton, and then they can hopefully build long-term relationships and join those other programs.
Just plug in. 2,500?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and it's all provided by our local restaurants. And so very grateful for, had, I think, 6 partner restaurants this summer.
That just all take their turn at cooking a meal and allowing for people to come and eat. And it goes back to that volunteering, right? These companies that are just actively wanting to participate in making our community a better place.
Yeah. I mean, Carlos did a great job with burritos on Thursdays, and that was definitely our highest attended day.
Right,
but of course it was, right? I mean, we have some amazing restaurants here.
I love it. Yeah. You're opening up something for me that I didn't even know really existed to the depth that it exists. I mean, this is no small thing. This is, it's just amazing to think that all of this is going on right underneath our noses. And I wonder how many people have no idea that.
And I haven't even told you half of it.
Keep going. I want to hear what more stuff do you have. I mean, that's awesome. Okay, Sikhs. Okay, what else?
Peace Connections really started because it was, I joke about this a lot. It was a group of guys getting coffee who were just talking about, problems, solving the problems of the world. And they said, well, we really want to do something about this. And so it was actually that group of guys who were meeting at Druber's who talked about recycling. And so they helped start recycling in Newton. And we were one of the first communities in Kansas to have a program because they cared, right? And they started community gardens, and they did all kinds of different programs kind of focused on just building a brighter future. I don't know if they would have used those same words or the same language with that.
That's what it is.
But so much of the work that we do, poverty work really is peace work.
Yeah.
If you talk about that from like an ecumenical standpoint, there are many different churches involved when it first started, but it was specifically non-religious so that anyone could access it. Really saying that poverty work is peace work. Because as long as families don't have the resources they need, there won't be peace in their homes, which means there won't be peace in our community. And I just want to make sure everyone has the things they need to live and to live well.
Yeah, and it's basic things that many of us take for granted, because we're only allowed to see it through our eyes, our lens, and then this opens up a door for us to be able to see into the lives of other people. So keep coming. You got more stuff.
Yeah.
What else do you guys do?
Absolutely. So about a year and a half ago, we started a new program or new initiative called Laundry Love. So we go to the laundromat once a month and we just pay for people's laundry. Like, full stop, that's it. We provide the quarters and the detergent that they need to make sure everyone has access to clean clothes. Because, you feel different and you act different like when you feel good in your skin and in your clothes. We have a really great church partner or some volunteers who provide a meal for that time. And then we invite other organizations to come in and be at the laundromat with us so that they can talk about services they offer. So just last week, DCF came and they were helping the attendees fill out their LEAP applications. Just different things going on. And we've been averaging about 200 loads of laundry every month.
Wow. And are you seeing the same people? Or are you seeing it grow? Or how is that program faring?
It's growing a lot. You've probably heard people talk about high water rates in Newton.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that might be part of it.
Time or two.
It's fun having people there. And they come for all kinds of different reasons, right? I mean, some it's because they don't have water or don't have a washing machine at their home. Some just because it helps finances in general. Others, it's just about the community and being around others or washing those large comforters that don't fit in your home machines.
Yeah. And for anybody listening who's asking themselves right now, are there really people that are in that kind of situation? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I read some statistics here locally in what I do, and it was just, I couldn't believe the amount of free and reduced lunch population, the percentage that we have here in Newton. And, you don't qualify for that if you got money to pay for your school lunches. And there's definitely people in our community that are in need. They're in need, and this is just another way that you serve them. I mean, something else. Give me something else, Kendra.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it is if you don't know what the free and reduced lunch rate is, you don't know how to help, right? So the more we can talk about some of those barriers families are facing, the more we can celebrate the good things that are going on, and then we can really start to make progress and move that needle, right? And so I love conversations like this when you're just like, oh, I didn't know that was part of our community, or that's a part I haven't experienced. And a lot of it for families living with limited resources, they don't want people to know, right? Because it's embarrassing or
Yeah.
it feels like a shortfall.
It's definitely a shame factor.
And there's
Yeah.
a big part of our conversation and a big part of our curriculum that once you get together with a room full of people in that same situation, they realize it's not just because they made bad choices. It's because they didn't have good choices to choose from, right? So it really elevates that conversation, and it can be really motivating just to make bigger changes.
Yeah, the realization that it's not just me.
Right.
I mean, it's not just me. And then there's a community of people that support one another in that situation. But even, I go back to volunteers, we talk about in many instances, I'm involved with some non-for-profits or non-profits. And I've said this over and over and over again. The need is so great and the hands are so few. But you all are doing something right when it comes to volunteers, because you have a lot of volunteers, do you not?
Yeah, we do. And we can always use more. But people are so passionate, and just figuring out what you're passionate about and going with it. I mean, one of my favorite things is just talking with people about what they're good at and figuring out ways to plug them in, right? Because it's fun to be celebrated for what you're good at.
Yeah.
And so we have lots of volunteers serving meals. I mean, we just put a call out on our Facebook yesterday looking for a volunteer to help wrap Christmas presents for some kids. And some new people whose names I didn't even know signed up, and I love that. But everyone can be a part of it, and that's the thing I love about this work, is it's really inviting.
Over time, have you seen it grow based upon volunteers? So kind of the push-pull method here is you have a need, you have volunteers to meet that need, but then you have volunteers that show up and say, hey, I'm really good at this. Then that just becomes another thing that you can offer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so just what are some things that are coming up here, just in the immediate or in the near future, that people should know about, or ways they can volunteer? I mean, we are during the holidays. You mentioned wrapping Christmas presents, so I'm sure the boat has sailed on that already, and people, we're coming to the end of that. But what are some things coming up in the future that you all are doing that you'd really like to have more community support with, or just give me a rundown? Yeah,
so we have our Getting Ahead class going on right now, and they have, maybe 5 weeks left of their class before they graduate. So they will finish mid-February, and we'll have a great graduation celebration. So I'd say check out our Facebook page for that. And after they graduate, we'll be doing some Bridges Out of Poverty classes just for community members. That is our volunteer training as well. So everyone that we have graduate that class, we'll need 2 to 3 more volunteers for them, and we have 9 in the class now, so that's potentially 27 new volunteers. So there's lots of opportunity for that. And we'll be partnering them up in mid-March most likely, and between now and mid-March we'll also have a soup, supper, and dessert auction. It's one of our biggest fundraisers of the year. So any good bakers out there, that's another great way to volunteer.
So if somebody asks you, just point blank asks you, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, why do you do this?
I love it. I love people, and it's fascinating. It's good.
Just want to serve. Yeah. And so if I'm a volunteer and I ask you the question, why should I volunteer?
It kind of depends what you want to get out of it. If you want to volunteer because you want to learn a new skill or a new craft, if you want to volunteer because you want to serve and help your neighbor, if you want to learn about something you didn't know before, there's many different reasons or motivations why people volunteer, and we can hopefully meet all of them here. Shout out to Tom, our volunteer manager. He's new in his position, but he's just a rock star.
I like Tom. I just met Tom the other day.
Yeah.
A very outgoing person. Tom, you're a rock star. Yeah. I got to say, very helpful. You can tell that he has a passion for what he's signed on to do. Another just straight up direct question. If I'm somebody that is questioning whether or not this is for me, or that I could benefit from the services that are provided, and I would ask you a point blank question to say, why do I need this? What would your answer be?
Like, why do you need to volunteer?
No, if I was somebody that was on the receiving end of this, and the questions become, well, it's not really for me, or just to line it up into one question is, why why would you tell me that I need this?
Sure. Well, I'd say just come check it out to see if it fits what you need. Some people don't, it's not for everyone, right? So being in a big crowd of people might cause too much anxiety. I mean, for a lot of reasons, that can be a barrier for people. But I'd say come check it out. And also say we're all stronger together. We all have something that we need to learn, and we all have something that we can offer.
Very cool. Very cool. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we are getting close to the end of the program. So one thing that I always do is I asked for you to have the guest to have the last word, so you get the last word. Mm-hmm. And I would just want you to have the opportunity to speak directly to the hearts and the minds of anybody listening. What do you have to say for us? What do you have to say, Kendra?
Yeah. So our vision is a thriving community sustained by peace and social justice. That's what it is for Peace Connections. And I'd say everyone can be a part of it, whether you're officially a volunteer and you fill out a form for us or not. So if it's giving your time to advertise a program like ours, if it's cooking a meal or donating money, whatever, it's a really easy way, like you can plug in. But honestly, just being a good neighbor is a great way to volunteer and build a stronger community. So just like be a good human. That's it.
Very good. Well, I appreciate you. I know that there's probably a lot more to going on than what we talked about. Before we go, I want to make sure that you give out your information so that way people can contact you if they hear this, if they want to volunteer, if they have more questions, if they want to tell you did a great job on the interview. Would you provide your contact information for everybody so that way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll also say for our volunteers, for any story I got wrong, please let me know. I would love to, correct the record on that. But peaceconnections.org. You can also find us at Peace Connections or at Circle of Hope on Facebook or Instagram.
There you go. Use the old social medias to get there, right? And you're located
at 209 South Pine, right next to the health department.
Okay, so the building just to the north of the health department. So if you know where that's at, then just walk in there and say, "Where's Kendra?" They'll know you. They'll send you right to your door.
Yeah.
And you might get to talk to Tom too.
Yeah.
Because he's a rock star. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Harvey County Talk. As always, I was your host, Lance Gormley, and our guest on the program today was the director of Peace Connections, Kendra Davila.
Thank you much.